Hey,
What's
JD,
happening?
we can't see you.
how the hell do I do that?
We're gonna have a Kickturn party tonight. Alright!
Welcome to Kickturn Party, everybody. I'm Bunny. I'm your host today with our regular host, Jay Cap. We got Nat Bite here, and we have, whether he likes it or not, living legend, George Wilson.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Not sure about that, but happy to
original
be here
GD
for
boy.
sure. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely you are.
So, George, you are originally from Florida. Where were you at from in Florida?
Jacksonville Beach.
Ah, okay. I've
Atlantic
got
Beach and Jacksonville Beach.
I know quite a few people down there. Probably the generation after you, Grigley and Schmidt and Lenny Bird, all Buck Smith, all those guys.
Yeah. Buck. I've known Buck since he was about 8 or 9. Like
I've known Buck since
a
he was
little
probably
fuck when he was when Kona opened in I guess it was 77. Yeah, he was a little kid there. He's there every day.
Yeah.
And Buck's got kind of a Knoxville connection, right? From Gatlinburg or whatever.
Yeah, Buck and Pat Clark did demos up here at a little amusement park called Magic World for a summer. And
cool.
So Buck and Pat Clark came up and stayed in a cabin. I guess this was when Buck was like 15. I guess this was probably 1982 or so.
Wow.
And they came up and stayed and so I, have continuously run into Buck ever since then. So
I love it. Good guy, man. I love him.
he is. Yeah, he is.
Fucking killer pull rider too.
Yeah, and he still rips. I caught up with him not too long ago, and he is still just tearing it up.
Yeah, and he kills Conan, man. The guy's just like crazy. Kills that tombstone, man, which is like, we built that thing. We put that, there was no vertical in the park, and like after a couple of weeks, we because I was kind of a park pro there with Mitch Kaufman and Jimmy Plumer, and we was all, man, we need vertical. So we built that like 6-foot tombstone with cinder blocks, and it had like, you've been there, I'm sure, but the king's pretty nasty. So when we first started riding it, I mean, it was like, that's 6 feet of vert, you know what I mean? So
yeah, that thing's pretty gnarly. I've been to Kona quite a few times over the years. We were down there for the 40th, and that was a lot of fun. That was really
I was there. I think I was there. I was there. So.
Yeah. I'm an observer of culture, being in the arts, and I'm always very intrigued by the fact that America is able to absorb counterculture. Whatever is bucking the system becomes the mall within a couple of years.
Eventually.
Now, skateboarding has kind of done that to a certain extent. You've got Zoomies, you've got everybody wearing Vans, you've got influencers wearing Thrasher T-shirts and hats.
Oh, yeah.
So it happens all over the place. But for some reason, skateboarding still seems to hold on to that subvert, F you, anarchist, don't mess with me mentality. And I'm very intrigued by the fact that skateboarding can, even though it's in the X Games, it's heading to the Olympics, Shaun White, all those people, and nothing against the Shaun Whites of the world, but you've still got a whole culture of people who are not going to be accepted. And it's a renegade culture, and it's very American in its purest form. And I wonder why it's able to retain that. Do you have any opinion on why?
Well, and just to say one thing with just everything that's going on in the world right now and everything, and talk about a lot of people not to be accepted doing it, but also skateboarding is very accepting of like race or whatever. That's what's so rad about it, you know what I mean? And I don't know. I mean, for me, I came from a broken home, and I just got to say, and I know a lot of people say this who grew up in my era and stuff. But if it wasn't for skateboarding, man, I don't know if I would ever made it, you know, as far as, I mean, I'm 60 now, you know, and I mean, it opened doors for me. It still opens doors for me that I can't believe it. You know, I mean, it opened up the door for my business. You know, I manufactured clothing for 30 years, and that was all through skateboarding. And, you know, and the one thing I like when people always thank you skateboarding, I mean, it's just like you're in a club, you know what I mean? It's like you're a member of like not really a secret society, but it's just like, I mean, it's molded me to probably who I am today. And like I say, it continues to open doors for me. And like, you know, and then I just have a brotherhood of people that I've known, you know, from the late 60s all the way, you know, and I have guys, I mean, I have relationships with people for 40 and 50 years from skateboarding, which is amazing. You know, a lot of them are gone now, and a lot are still going, and a lot of guys are still fucking ripping at like hitting 60 and early 60s and late 50s, and that's pretty amazing. Like Marty Grimes, who's my teammate from Z, you know, he just got inducted in the Hall of Fame, and the guy's 59. He's still totally ripping. I mean, like the guy just like fucking still shreds, inverts and laybacks, and like, so so I just look at it as like kind of a secret club, you know what I mean? Not really a secret, but it's just like you know, if you're in the club, you're in the club, you know what I mean? So
That's absolutely right.
And like I say, the one thing I really dig is, like, say you're not accepted by society, but skateboarding, you know, there's no like, you know, it's not really judging on color or whatever, you know what I mean? Which is pretty awesome, you know. I mean, it's gone through phases with like when street skating started and stuff. Some things I didn't like, but I think it's kind of worked through all that, and now it's the same thing. It's still like a kind of like a secret brotherhood. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, I agree, George. I think it's you know, it's a very accepting culture.
Yeah.
You know, everybody, you know, if you take the time and effort out of your life to dedicate it to something as silly as this little toy and make something of it, then everybody else that has done it as well respects that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter your skin color, your religion, your political beliefs, whatever it may be. We all recognize that in each other.
Totally.
Yeah. My kid Cal just joined us, and that's kind of what my connection to George Wilson is. Cal was involved in a little project in Southern California called The Teenaged with Ali Asha. Awerka Moore, is that how you pronounce his last name? I don't know. I can't say it because I'm a Southern white.
That sounds pretty good.
But yeah, so I'd heard all about George Wilson and how cool he was and what a great guy he was. And so Nate and Jay and I went to the Kona 40th anniversary, and I see George and Steve Olson walking down. And so this big goofball 40-year-old fanboy goes rolling up to him, and I could almost imagine in your all's heads, you were thinking, oh, goodness, here comes another dude. And I said, hey, how you doing? And you all were super cordial. But when I mentioned Cal's name, you're like, oh, you're Cal's dad. Cool. So that was exciting.
Cal's opening doors, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's got a styling new dude, too.
Nice
man.
yeah. Thanks.
Man.
Yeah, he's bald like his dad now. But he
trying to look like my dad, you know?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, now I see where you got your good looks, man.
Exactly. It's all from him.
Yeah, that kind of leads me into my next question about how style has always kind of played an important role in counterculture, and especially in skateboarding. And I mean, I know that Nate and Jay still get their cargo pants in the kids section at Walmart, but you know,
Target.
But so, George, you are the CEO or whatever you want to call it of Rivy Goods, right? Why don't you talk a little bit?
Well, to be honest, yeah, I mean, the funny thing about Rivy Goods is it's never really been a real company. It's been kind of more like it's been like a passion project. Like 15 years ago, I was in like some of the top stores in Japan and all that. And it's just always been my passion project. But actually now actually pursuing it more now that everything is. I kind of shut down my main business. I did private label, and I produced for hundreds of brands over the years. You know what I mean? Be it all. I started in the early 90s. I was doing all the action sports brands, like all the big skateboard brands and stuff. Did a lot of snowboard clothing. So I got into it in that arena, and then what happened was people started going to China, and then I just kind of started going into more higher end denim and all that, and that kind of became my niche, is like a sort of a niche denim manufacturer. You know what I mean? And I worked with big corporate companies, and pretty much most companies I worked with. But my specialty was helping small brands kind of build. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like what the teenage would have done if we would have been able to.
I had no idea. I actually was a rep for Skate Rags for a while back in the early 90s through Joe Bowers and
Joe's a good friend of mine.
Oh yeah. You know Joe? Yeah. He actually grew up here like 20 miles up the road from where we live. Yeah, Joe's a real good guy. I still keep in touch with him. He's working over at Eastern now. He's a real good guy.
Yeah, Reggie Barnes is a really good friend of mine for a lot of years. I love Reggie Barnes.
Oh, yeah, cool.
And I knew Joe when they were all affiliated with Alien and stuff.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, cool.
Sarge and
Chris Carter and Mike Hill. Yeah, those guys are great. Yeah. Those guys are all real good.
Yeah. Well, I feel like skateboarding is very, very American when I think about American culture. And I think jeans are very, very American when I think of American culture. So it kind of seems quite fitting that you would navigate to that. But what was the path that, from Z-Flex to Rivian?
It's so weird. Anyway, before this is what happened. Before there was any clothing companies, like I was doing Z in the 80s, right? And it was just, I kind of hit, it was like as far as I could go with it, you know what I mean? And then I had this idea. A friend of mine, there was a company called Bronze Age that was based out of Venice.
Yeah.
And it was sort of like very small at the time. And it was sort of like a front for another business, which maybe I shouldn't say or whatever. But anyway, I approached my friend. I said, look, I have an idea. I want to do clothing line for skateboarding, and there was no one had done it yet, and he goes, I may be going on a vacation for a while, like for a few years. So he goes, but I might be getting off, you know what I mean? So he goes, why don't you come in and work with me? And then, so like the first week I was in there, he goes, well, I'm actually going away. So I got in and kind of went head first into it, and I did it for a few years, and I'm not like the smartest guy, but I learned pretty quick, and I just dove in, and I started, I was doing sales and started actually producing it, and then started doing most of the designing of actually the cut and sew stuff. And we actually, when I came in, we were at about 700. We'd done 700,000 that year, and then we went in 2 years. We went to 2.5 with 4 employees. And so my friend came back from his vacation with like $1 million cash in the bank. And then, it went to 9, but they basically ruined it. And then I just kind of went on and started doing my own thing after that. But it was just like I had this idea. I wanted to make clothing for skateboarding. And here I am, 30 years later.
There was, especially during the late 70s, there was not a whole lot going on with clothing for skateboarding. I mean, people were wearing OP shorts and that kind of thing. They were glomming on to like the surf thing. I guess one of the first ones I really remember was, other than like skate protective equipment like Mad Rats or SIOs or something like that, was some of the Skate Rag stuff and some of that early stuff. Those guys were actually doing something specific to skateboarding rather than just a spinoff of Quicksilver or some of the other brands. And I do remember Bronze Age. I remember seeing I never owned any of this stuff, but I do remember seeing the ads in the magazine back in the day.
Yeah, like it never really hit big in the U.S., but I mean, we had like a crazy neighborhood following and all that, but it got really big in Japan. It was great. Like at that time, Japan was insane. I mean, it was like in the in the 90s, Japan was going crazy. So we had a bunch of big accounts and all that. So, but yeah, there wasn't at that time back then, there wasn't really anything for skateboarding. Like, I mean, yeah, like you say, OPs. And then I remember when Quicksilver first started coming out with some cool shorts and stuff like that, but there wasn't really, I mean, I used to, same thing, wear Levi's or just a lot of cutoffs or whatever, you know,
Right.
just like, yeah.
Well, back then it was just mainly T-shirts with company logos, track or, whatever it may be, as opposed to actually clothing that was being manufactured. And now that's a huge thing. I've told several of my friends who run skate shops that, hey man, carry more clothing because you're going to make more money off clothing than you do off hard goods because anybody can wear the clothing. Not everybody can skate, but anybody can, and that's what's happened with Vans.
Well,
Vans
to any airport, man, and you can count the Thrasher T-shirts walking by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Thrasher had that whole thing where it became, like you said, real fashionable, where all kinds of people were. I mean, and then like Jake Phelps, rest in peace. But they started freaking out because all these like high fashion people are knocking off the Thrasher, and like it was a whole thing for a little while. But
I mean, it's still with especially with like kids. I mean, I've got 4 teenage daughters, and it's funny because I'm their dad and I nag on like the absorbing our culture type thing. I always kind of nag on kids, that they're friends with that are wearing the Vans or wearing a Thrasher T-shirt. And if their parents had actually picked up a Thrasher magazine and looked in it, they wouldn't be wearing a Thrasher T-shirt any longer.
Right.
The counterculture is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And Jay and I joke all the time about stop co-opting my culture and that kind of thing. But it's like back in the day, that's what we wanted because we were so outcast and so unaccepted that if you were caught wearing a pair of Vans, your average jock would give you static about it.
Yeah.
And skateboard or whatever. I don't know how many times I heard that. And then all of a sudden it happened. Everything is accepted. Skateboarding is part of mainstream culture. And now we want that to go away. I want it back to the way it was. There's a big jock element that's hit with the onslaught of Nike and all that New Balance crap. And that's great for the industry. The Olympics, love it or hate it, it's there. People like Shaun White, then you've got people like Tony Hawk that's probably the best possible ambassador for the sport. And it's done a lot, but there are times that I'm just like, give it back to where I was an outcast and you hated me.
Yeah. Well, that's how I feel. Like even it's cool and everything, but I'm not into it. And I mean, so much of that stuff's happened too just by the internet. Because back before you had to wait till the magazine came out, or like, you had to actually do your homework and figure shit out.
Oh yeah. I remember wearing Vans here in Tennessee during the late 70s, and early 80s. And it's like you couldn't buy them. If there wasn't any place in Tennessee, there wasn't any place within 300-400 miles where you could get a pair of Vans. You order straight from California. And then you get them, and everybody would go, what kind of silly ass shoes are those, you little, And it's like, hey, they're skateboard shoes. And then, of course, that led down a whole nother road of like skateboard. Why don't you just go hula hoop or yo-yo, man? What's your problem?
Yeah.
Man,
and then you would show them pictures of you in a pool or on a half pipe doing an invert or something. They'd go, you do this? What's that? That's you can't do that.
Case in point, man. I mean, I'm the baby of this group by a long shot, and I'm 45. And my father saw me skateboard for the first time when I was 42 or 43 years old at a freaking contest where I'm in the old man division. And I mean, I've been skateboarding since I was a little kid, and he was completely unaccepting of it, thought I should be playing soccer or baseball or some bullshit like that. Now, my mother, she had an old hippie van, and she drove me up and down the East Coast taking me to contests. She was in on it from the very beginning. But my dad was a Marine and just wasn't into it. And finally get him to come out to our local skate park at 42 or 43 years old, and it blew him away. He was like, man, I had no idea. And then he starts into aren't you a little old for this?
Yeah.
Where do you skate now, George? You still get out and roll around, I'm guessing.
You know what? To be really honest, I haven't been skating that much. I almost broke my neck about 4 years ago, and there was also a bunch of other injuries in there. So, but I just actually set up because I live up in Tahunga. I live in it's like the foothills in Northeast LA, and I live up in this canyon, and it's insane hill. So my friend, I was just waiting for some wheels, and I got some wheels from my buddy James at Dogtown, and I'm going to start carving the hills. And then there's a couple places I want to skate. Like there's this harbor. It's kind of a new park. It's called, it's in Harbor City, like on the way to San Pedro, but they have this killer. It's only about 6 or 7 feet deep, but it's a three bowls, like not really a clover, but like three. So I'm itching to skate, man. I haven't ridden in it's probably been about 4 years.
You skating, Cal? You're being quiet down there.
Yeah, I'm actually about to head out to skate, but I just wanted to say what's up to everybody.
Oh, good seeing you, buddy.
Yeah.
So where are you going skating, Cal?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm not too sure yet.
Just gonna hit some curves.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm just meeting up with some friends, and then wherever they're headed, I'm just gonna go. So.
All right, let's link soon, buddy.
Yeah.
For sure. Cal.
All right, stay tuned, Cal.
Everybody's gonna hang out here tonight. All right. We'll pass out in the flat. All right. We got nothing better to do than to take 6 runs, drink a dozen brews. Don't talk about anything else. We don't wanna know. We're dedicated to beer, smoke, and roll. Backside slasher.